before the Ukraine war escalates. Do this with your money. Something big is happening in the world right now. Tensions are rising. Markets are shaking. Oil prices are reacting. Currencies are moving. And millions of people are quietly asking one question. What should I do with my money before things get worse? Because history has shown us something very important. Wars do not just happen on battlefields. They happen in economies. They happen in fuel stations. They happen in grocery stores. They happen in your bank account. And if you are not prepared, you do not just watch the news, you feel the news. Today we are going to talk calmly, logically, and realistically about what smart everyday people, not billionaires, not hedge funds, but normal people, can do with their money before geopolitical tensions escalate. This is not panic. This is preparation, understanding what war does to money. Before you even think about investing, saving, or moving your money, you must understand one brutal truth. War creates uncertainty, and uncertainty is the biggest enemy of financial stability. When governments prepare for conflict, they may increase spending massively. When trade routes become dangerous, shipping costs rise. When oil supply is threatened, fuel prices spike. And when fuel prices spike, everything becomes more expensive. Transport becomes expensive. Food becomes expensive. Electricity can become expensive. Suddenly, your normal monthly budget feels like it has been attacked. Not by missiles, but by inflation. Inflation during wartime can behave differently from normal economic inflation. It can be faster. It can be unpredictable. And it can last longer than people expect. This is why the first step is not investing. The first step is awareness, the psychology of financial panic. Most people lose money during crises not because the crisis was unavoidable, but because their reaction was emotional. Fear can make people sell everything at the worst possible moment. Greed can make people chase dangerous opportunities that promise war profits. Social media becomes filled with loud voices. Buy this now, sell everything. The economy is collapsing, but smart money rarely screams. Smart money observes. During global tension, markets become like storms. Some ships panic and crash into rocks. Others reduce speed, adjust direction, and survive the storm. The goal is not to predict every wave. The goal is to stay afloat. Why liquidity becomes powerful. In peaceful times, people often underestimate the importance of cash. They want every dollar working, every money invested, every coin growing. But during geopolitical instability, liquidity becomes freedom. Cash gives you time. Time to think. Time to wait. Time to avoid bad decisions. If food prices rise suddenly. If transport costs increase. If unexpected family needs appear. You do not want to sell long-term investments in panic. You want to already have breathing room. Financial stress is not just about numbers. It affects sleep. It affects relationships. It affects decision-making. Liquidity protects not only your wallet, it protects your mind. Market volatility and sudden repricing. When tensions rise between major powers, global markets often react before politicians even speak publicly. Stock markets can drop within hours. Currencies can weaken overnight. Commodity prices can jump dramatically. This is because financial markets are forward-looking. They price in fear. They price in expectations. They price in possibilities. Sometimes nothing actually happens. But the fear of what could happen still moves billions of dollars. This is why inexperienced investors get confused. They see prices falling and think the world is ending. They see prices rising and think opportunity is guaranteed. But volatility is not opportunity by default. Volatility is movement, and movement, without understanding, can destroy capital. Oil. The hidden driver of everything. One of the biggest economic impacts of Middle East tension, historically, has been oil. Oil is not just fuel for cars. It is fuel for global civilization. It moves ships. It powers industries. It influences airline prices. It affects food production. When oil supply fears rise, global economies react like a body reacting to pain. Some countries benefit. temporarily, others struggle immediately. Consumers often feel the effect last, and investors who understand this dynamic sometimes position themselves differently long before headlines become dramatic. They do not guess outcomes, they prepare for scenarios. Currency, risk most people ignore. During major geopolitical shifts, currencies can move strongly. Some currencies weaken due to capital outflow, some strengthen due to perceived safety. For ordinary people, this can mean imported goods become more expensive, international school fees increase, travel becomes harder, even online subscriptions priced in foreign currency can suddenly feel heavier. People who understand currency risk may diversify savings, not because they are predicting disaster, but because they respect uncertainty, the temptation of war profits. Whenever global conflict appears in the news, there is always a wave of content promising easy money. Buy defense stocks, buy oil futures, buy crypto now, but here is something rarely discussed. Professional investors who succeed in crisis environments spend years building systems, research processes, and risk controls. Retail investors trying to jump into complex markets during emotional moments are often stepping into games they do not fully understand. War can create winners financially, but chasing those winners blindly can turn preparation into speculation. And speculation without discipline is simply gambling wearing a suit. Banking stability and trust. Another quiet fear during geopolitical instability is banking trust. People begin asking, is my money safe? Should I withdraw everything? Should I move funds? History shows that financial systems are deeply connected to government stability and economic confidence. In most cases, mass panic causes more damage than the actual event. This is why balanced thinking matters. Preparation is wise. Paranoia is destructive. The strongest financial position is usually not extreme action. It is thoughtful positioning. Financial preparation is personal. There is no single strategy that fits everyone. A student saving small amounts faces different risks than a business owner managing payroll. A family supporting relatives abroad faces different currency exposure than someone living entirely locally. This is why financial content must be interpreted, not copied. Your income stability, your responsibilities, your time horizon, all shape what smart preparation means. The goal is not perfection. The goal is resilience. Build a financial survival base first, before thinking about profit, before thinking about investments, before thinking about opportunities. You must build something extremely powerful, a financial survival base. This is the foundation that allows you to remain calm when others are panicking. A survival base is not about becoming rich overnight. It is about making sure your life does not collapse if conditions worsen. In times of rising geopolitical tension, normal assumptions can suddenly break. Prices that felt stable can change quickly. Business income can slow down. Side hustles can become less predictable. Job security can feel uncertain. This is why the smartest preparation begins with strengthening your personal financial ground. Emergency fund, strategy in crisis environments. An emergency fund is often discussed casually in finance videos. But during potential global conflict escalation, it becomes a serious defensive weapon. Not aggressive, not exciting, but incredibly powerful. Imagine fuel prices doubling in a few months. Transport costs rise. Food distribution becomes more expensive. Landlords react to inflation. If you are living paycheck to paycheck, every news headline becomes personal stress. But if you have several months of expenses saved, you gain something priceless. Choice. You can wait. You can observe. You can plan instead of reacting emotionally. This psychological advantage is often underestimated. Money in reserve reduces desperation, and desperation destroys financial judgment. Avoid overexposure to speculative assets. When uncertainty rises, speculative assets often become more volatile. Prices can swing dramatically in both directions. Some traders love this environment, but for average individuals trying to protect their life savings, extreme volatility can be dangerous. Chasing fast gains during crisis narratives can lead to fast losses. The emotional cycle becomes intense. excitement when prices rise, fear when prices crash, regret when decisions feel rushed. A calmer approach is to recognize that survival comes before growth during unstable phases. Growth can be pursued later when clarity improves. Gradual decision-making beats sudden moves. One of the biggest financial mistakes during global tension is making massive changes overnight. Selling everything, buying everything, moving all funds impulsively. Markets reward patience more often than speed. Gradual adjustments allow you to observe new information, reduce timing risk, maintain flexibility. Financial positioning is not a single dramatic action. It is a series of thoughtful steps, like steering a ship rather than jumping into the ocean. Real economy preparation, money management during potential conflict is not only about investments. It is also about lifestyle adjustments. People who anticipate inflation sometimes begin managing consumption more strategically, reducing unnecessary spending, avoiding long-term debt commitments at unstable interest conditions, building modest reserves of essential goods. This is not panic hoarding. It is quiet preparation. When uncertainty increases, stability in daily life becomes extremely valuable. What history teaches about war and markets? If you zoom out and look at financial history over the last century, one pattern becomes very clear. Wars shock markets. But markets are not static systems. They are living organisms reacting to fear, information, and expectations. At the beginning of major conflicts, uncertainty is highest. Nobody knows how long fighting will last. Nobody knows how supply chains will react. Nobody knows which economies will suffer most. Because of this uncertainty, investors often move cautiously. Capital becomes defensive. Risk appetite drops. But as time passes, new information emerges. Something interesting happens. Markets begin adapting. New pricing realities form. New winners appear. New economic priorities emerge. This does not mean war is good for economies. It means economies evolve under pressure. Understanding this helps individuals avoid extreme reactions. Where smart money often moves during crisis. Large institutional investors rarely behave like social media narratives suggest. They do not simply chase headlines. Instead, they analyze exposure. They ask questions like, which sectors are most vulnerable to disruption? Which assets provide relative stability? Which currencies may strengthen due to perceived safety? Sometimes they reduce risk. Sometimes they increase selective exposure. Sometimes they simply hold more liquidity. What they almost never do is gamble emotionally. Preparation is quiet. Positioning is gradual. This mindset is worth studying, not copying blindly, but understanding. The crypto question during war narratives. In recent years, digital assets have entered global financial conversations in ways never seen before. During geopolitical tension, some people view them as alternatives to traditional systems. Others see them as highly speculative risk zones. Reality tends to be complex. Digital assets can experience dramatic swings driven by sentiment, liquidity, and global capital flows. For individuals trying to protect stability, understanding volatility is crucial. Exposure without risk management can turn curiosity into loss. But informed positioning with realistic expectations may play a different role depending on personal strategy. Again, awareness beats hype. Panic selling, the silent wealth destroyer. Perhaps one of the most damaging behaviors during crisis cycles is panic selling. It usually follows a predictable emotional pattern. Prices fall. Fear rises. People imagine worst-case scenarios. They sell to stop the pain. But markets often move in waves. Sharp drops can be followed by sharp rebounds. Those who sell at extreme fear levels sometimes lock in losses permanently. This does not mean holding blindly is always correct. It means decisions should be guided by planning, not emotional exhaustion. The danger of overconfidence. Just as fear can destroy financial stability, overconfidence can also be dangerous. Some individuals believe crisis environments are perfect opportunities to take aggressive bets. They assume they can predict outcomes better than markets. They increase leverage. They concentrate positions. They ignore downside scenarios. When reality does not match expectations, consequences can be severe. Financial humility is underrated. Acknowledging uncertainty often protects capital more effectively than bold predictions. How wealthy individuals often respond. Wealthy individuals usually do not panic publicly. They have teams. They have advisors. They have diversified structures. When tensions rise, they evaluate exposure calmly. They may shift allocations gradually. They may hedge risks quietly. They may increase liquidity without announcing it. This does not mean they always succeed, but their approach tends to be structured rather, streaming, interrupted, waiting for the complete message. And now I want to ask you something very real. Not as viewers, not as subscribers, but as people living through uncertain times. What decision are you going to make about your future? Because moments like this, they do not just test economies. They test mindset. Some people will panic. Some people will ignore reality. But a few people will prepare quietly. And years from now, when the world feels stable again, they will look back and realize this was the moment they changed their financial life forever. If this video helped you see money, risk, and preparation in a new way, do not just scroll away. Hit the like button so more people can find this message. Subscribe if you want deeper, honest conversations about money and the real world. And most importantly, tell me in the comments, what is the one thing you are doing differently with your money after watching this? Because your decision today might protect your tomorrow. I will see you in the next video.